If someone had told me that at 79 years old, I would be unexpectedly spending 2 long months in a nursing home, I would have laughed right then and there. That was always something for much later in life, I thought. Something for other people, certainly not for me. But as we all inevitably learn, life simply doesn't wait around for our meticulously crafted plans. It relentlessly moves forward, with or without our explicit permission. I thought my temporary stay would be relatively brief, just a small, necessary moment of physical recovery before joyfully returning to the familiar comforts of my own cherished home. But those 2 months unexpectedly changed me in profound ways. I saw things I had never consciously noticed before. The quiet despair lurking in some residents' eyes and the deep, unshakable peace radiating from others. I personally met people who had been living there for years, some patiently waiting for visits from loved ones that sadly never came, others quietly carrying regrets far heavier than the relentless weight of time itself. If this is a topic that you would like to hear more about, consider subscribing to Old Age Wisdom. And as I actively listened to their heartfelt stories and lay awake in the deafening silence of that often lonely place, I gradually realized something incredibly important. These weren't just their valuable life lessons, they were poignantly mine as well. They are ultimately yours, too, because one day, whether we consciously like it or not, we will all inevitably grow older. And when that inevitable day finally comes, we won't have the magical ability to turn back the relentless hands of time. The only truly meaningful thing we can conscientiously do is proactively make sure that when we thoughtfully look back on our lives, we can honestly do so with a profound sense of inner peace, not with nagging feelings of deep regret. The essential question we should all be diligently asking ourselves each day is this: what kind of life will I ultimately look back on with genuine satisfaction? Before we officially begin, I would genuinely appreciate it if you could take just a quick moment to like this video. Your thoughtful support sincerely helps me continue to share more important life lessons with our ever-growing community. If you haven't yet subscribed to Old Age Wisdom, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button right now and turning on the notification bell so you never miss any of our valuable future videos. Also, to help me continually improve the content I'm creating for you, if you enjoy this video and find it genuinely helpful, please leave a comment with the number 1 below. If, on the other hand, there was something you didn't particularly appreciate about the video, please leave a comment with the number 0. That valuable feedback will help me consistently improve my presentation and create content that is even more helpful and engaging for you in the future. Now, without further ado, let's get started by exploring my first life-altering lesson. 1. Loneliness is the greatest burden of old age. I personally met a kind man named George during my lengthy stay in the nursing home. He was 82 years old, with remarkably sharp blue eyes that still held a faint remnant of the strong, independent, and full-of-life man he once undoubtedly was. But now, in his twilight years, he simply sat by the window every single day, quietly staring at the often unopened front door, constantly waiting, patiently waiting for someone who, sadly, would never come. George had 4 grown children, all successful and extremely busy with their own demanding lives. Yet, heartbreakingly, none of them had visited him in years. He never outwardly complained and never spoke ill of them, but there was an unmistakable sadness lingering in his voice whenever he happened to mention their names. "They call sometimes," he'd often tell me with a weak, wistful smile. "They say they'll definitely visit me when they get a chance." But in reality, they sadly never did. I came to realize that loneliness isn't just the mere absence of other people. It's the agonizing absence of feeling consistently remembered and deeply needed. In that often desolate nursing home environment, I saw it practically everywhere I looked. People who had once lived remarkably vibrant lives, actively engaged in fulfilling careers, and surrounded by loving families, now simply sitting alone in their sparsely furnished rooms, their only consistent company being the monotonous hum of a television set. It wasn't necessarily the lack of access to high-quality medical care that made their eyes look so hopelessly hollow. It was the deafening silence of their days that stretched on endlessly, and nights that seemed even longer and more unbearable. And then, I gradually understood something profound that I had never fully grasped before. Loneliness isn't just a fleeting emotion. It's a debilitating sickness, one that silently eats away at you from the inside out, slowly robbing you of your will to live. The absolute saddest part of all is that most loneliness in old age is entirely preventable. It so frequently happens simply because people get too busy, too easily distracted, and far too caught up in their own demanding lives to consciously notice the needs of the precious ones who actively raised them, who unconditionally loved them, and who once made countless personal sacrifices for them. People all too often mistakenly assume that there will always be enough time to visit, enough time to call, enough time to truly reconnect, until there sadly isn't. If you are looking for content that offers practical advice for aging, please consider subscribing to Old Age Wisdom today. The outside world inevitably moves on, and the elderly, who were once firmly at the very center of a thriving family's life, gradually become a mere afterthought, relegated to the quiet margins. I used to mistakenly believe that loneliness was just an unavoidable part of growing older, but now I wholeheartedly know that it simply doesn't have to be that way. Relationships are very much like plants. You have to consistently water them, actively nurture them, and diligently care for them. Otherwise, they inevitably wither away and eventually die. If you are lucky enough to have precious people in your life right now, please don't wait until they're quietly sitting alone in a sparsely furnished room, sadly staring at a front door that sadly never opens for them. Intentionally call them, purposefully visit them, consciously show them that they still deeply matter to you. Because one day, you might unexpectedly find yourself in their very same place. And when that poignant day inevitably comes, you certainly won't wish for more money, more professional success, or more material possessions. You'll simply long for the soothing sound of a familiar voice and the comforting warmth of a loved one's presence. You'll desperately wish for precious time you can sadly never get back. 2. Health is more valuable than wealth. I personally met a man in the nursing home who, in his younger years, had seemingly possessed it all: vast wealth, immense power, and widespread professional success. He had diligently built a vast business empire, owned multiple lucrative properties, traveled the world in opulent style, and lived a life of seemingly boundless luxury. People once deeply respected him, actively admired him, and even secretly envied him. But now, in the twilight of his life, he tragically couldn't even lift a spoon to his own mouth without assistance. He simply sat in a confining wheelchair, sadly unable to walk, his body frail and essentially unresponsive. The immense money that had once given him such seemingly boundless freedom now meant absolutely nothing. It couldn't possibly buy back his lost physical strength. It couldn't restore his body's inherent ability to freely move, to comfortably eat, or to genuinely enjoy the simplest pleasures of everyday life. He looked directly at me one day, with a profound sense of regret etched deeply into his eyes, and poignantly said something that I will honestly never forget. I would willingly give away every single dollar I ever made, just to have my healthy body back. That incredibly powerful moment truly changed me forever. We spend far too much of our lives chasing professional success, consistently working long hours, actively sacrificing much-needed sleep, thoughtlessly skipping meals, and recklessly draining ourselves with constant stress, sincerely thinking that we are somehow building something truly worthwhile. We mistakenly believe that once we achieve a certain arbitrary level of wealth, we will finally be able to fully enjoy our lives. But what if, by the time we actually get there, our precious body is far too broken down to genuinely enjoy anything at all? What if all the money in the world can't give us back the natural ability to consciously walk outside and peacefully feel the comforting warmth of the sun gently caressing our aging skin? What if it can't possibly stop the persistent pain of a failing body or alleviate the constant frustration of gradually losing our hard-won independence? I sadly saw it firsthand in that often desolate nursing home. People who had once seemingly had it all now possessed tragically nothing, primarily because they had consciously neglected the one thing that always mattered most: their inherent good health. If you are discovering that old age wisdom is proving helpful, we urge you to share our channel. No one ever expects to end up in a place where they constantly need help with even the simplest, most basic things, but it sadly often happens, and it happens far faster than we initially realize. The hard truth is that no amount of wealth can somehow magically reverse decades of poor choices, years of knowingly ignoring our body's needs, recklessly pushing them relentlessly past their inherent limits, and sadly treating them like disposable machines instead of the fragile, irreplaceable vessels that they genuinely are. If I could somehow go back in time, I would certainly take far better care of myself. I would consciously walk more, diligently eat far better, and actively worry significantly less. I would proactively choose my overall health over fleeting material success, a demanding career, and completely unnecessary stress. Because in the end, when your precious body inevitably starts to fail, all the professional success in the world simply won't matter one little bit. What will matter instead is whether you still actively have the strength to comfortably stand, the boundless energy to laugh from your heart, and the simple ability to live each day relatively free from persistent pain. So, please, take exceptionally good care of yourself now, while you still actively can. Because once your precious health is knowingly gone, no amount of money will ever be able to truly bring it back. 3. Material things lose their meaning. I used to have a house filled with countless things. Beautiful antique furniture, expensive designer clothes, meticulously organized shelves lined with carefully curated collectibles, and tastefully arranged decorations that I had diligently gathered over the years. Every single room was thoughtfully arranged, and every object was consciously placed just right. At the time, I sincerely believed that these accumulated things truly mattered, that they were tangible symbols of a life well lived and readily visible proof of my overall success and consistent hard work. But now, in the twilight of my life, I live in a sparsely furnished single room in a modest nursing home, and virtually everything I once proudly owned is now consciously gone. And you know what? I honestly don't miss any of it. In the inherently limiting environment of a nursing home, you quickly realize just how utterly meaningless purely material things can often be. No one truly cares about the make or model of the car you once drove, the expensive designer clothes you previously wore, or the overall size of the house you diligently lived in. The only things that genuinely matter in the end are the authentic relationships you lovingly built and the enduring memories you diligently made. I have personally seen people sadly sitting alone in their rooms, surrounded by just a precious few carefully chosen remnants of their past. Well-worn photo albums, a beloved but well-worn book, an old wristwatch passed down through generations. Those are the precious things that consistently carry meaningful weight, largely because they are intimately tied to cherished experiences, to beloved people, and, above all, to enduring love. The fancy possessions, on the other hand, inevitably fade, break, and are often carelessly left behind. Please feel welcome to subscribe to Old Age Wisdom for great content. I once personally met a man who had devoted his entire life to diligently accumulating vast wealth. He had shrewdly owned numerous lucrative properties, consistently traveled first class, and reliably lived a life of seemingly limitless luxury. But in the often desolate nursing home, all of that material success meant absolutely nothing. He had no family members actively visiting him and virtually no real friends left. He told me with palpable regret, "I consciously spent my whole life working tirelessly for things that I ultimately can't even take with me. I now sincerely wish I had spent far more time consciously collecting valuable memories instead of fleeting material objects." His words hit me incredibly hard. How many of us, myself sadly included, thoughtlessly spend our lives doing essentially the same thing? Consciously working long hours, diligently chasing more money, and recklessly buying more and more purely material possessions, sincerely believing that these accumulated things will eventually somehow bring us lasting happiness. And yet, when the inevitable end finally comes, we realistically realize, far too late, perhaps, that none of it truly mattered in the way we had always thought. The things we diligently collect simply will not bring us lasting comfort in our old age. It won't be the expensive furniture or the flashy gadgets that ultimately give us enduring joy. It will be the cherished moments we lovingly shared, the precious people we actively loved, and the unforgettable experiences that profoundly made us feel truly alive. If I could somehow go back and consciously live my life all over again, I would certainly do things very differently. I would consciously buy less and actively experience far more. I would diligently fill my precious life with boundless laughter, unconditional love, and thrilling adventure instead of fleeting material objects. Because in the end, The only thing that genuinely matters is not what you proudly own, but the truly meaningful life that you conscientiously live. So, please, consciously let go of your often unhealthy obsession with material things, and actively focus instead on what realistically lasts: precious memories, enduring love, and the special people who consistently make your unique life worth living. 4. Cherish your independence. It's a precious gift. I never truly appreciated my precious independence until I consciously lost it. For most of my adult life, I honestly took it entirely for granted. The simple ability to easily get out of bed in the morning, walk unassisted to the kitchen, pour myself a cup of hot coffee, and independently drive to the store when I needed something. These were just ordinary parts of my daily life, things I never consciously gave a second thought. But when I unexpectedly found myself in a confining nursing home, suddenly dependent on others for even the simplest, most basic tasks, I finally understood just how incredibly precious and easily lost true independence actually is. I vividly remember the very first time I consciously had to ask for explicit help to simply use the bathroom. It was utterly humbling. I had consciously lived my entire life entirely on my own terms, confidently making my own decisions and freely doing things precisely when I wanted and exactly how I wanted. Now, I sadly had to patiently wait for someone to actively assist me, to diligently rely on others for tasks I had effortlessly done without thinking for my entire adult life. The devastating loss of my hard-won independence wasn't just purely physical, it was also profoundly emotional. It made me feel so small, so utterly helpless, and such a distinct burden. And I certainly wasn't alone in that pervasive feeling. As a thank you for your support of Old Age Wisdom, we encourage you to like this video and share with your friends. I personally met people who had conscientiously spent decades living remarkably active and vibrant lives, only to wake up one ordinary day and sadly realize that their precious body no longer fully obeyed them. Their alert mind was still sharp and eager, but their previously reliable limbs were now noticeably weak. Their strong spirit was still willing to actively engage with life, but their frail body had frustratingly given up. There was a kind woman in the nursing home named Helen. She had been a competitive athlete in her younger years, consistently full of unbounded energy and tireless strength. Now, tragically, she needed constant help just to lift a spoon to her mouth. One day, she looked directly at me and poignantly said, "I never, ever thought I'd end up like this. If I had somehow known this was coming, I would have sincerely cherished every single step, every simple movement, and every precious moment I actively had conscious control over my own body." Her heart-wrenching words truly haunted me. I, too, had thoughtfully spent so much of my life mindlessly rushing from one task to the next, never pausing to consciously appreciate the simple and incredibly precious gift of just being able to diligently care for myself. If you can presently still move freely and without pain, still consciously make your own choices each day, and still actively dress yourself, bathe yourself, and thoughtfully cook for yourself, please don't ever take any of it for granted. Because one day, you realistically might not be able to, and when that inevitable day finally comes, you will almost certainly look back and wistfully wish you had consciously appreciated those now distant simple freedoms far more than you ever did in the moment. Diligently take care of your precious body, consciously stay as active as you possibly can, and genuinely cherish every small freedom you currently possess. Independence is a priceless gift, one that can easily be unexpectedly taken away without any warning. Appreciate it fully now, while you still actively can. If you're still watching this video and finding these lessons helpful, please show your support by commenting 3 below to let me know you're still here with me. Thank you for your valuable time. 5. True happiness comes from simple things. There was a memorable woman in the nursing home named Margaret. She was 85 years old, noticeably frail, but always radiating a warm smile. She had sadly lost her beloved husband years ago, outlived many of her closest friends, and had no immediate family members who could regularly visit her. Yet every single morning, she greeted the staff and other residents with remarkable warmth, as if life had somehow given her nothing but unadulterated joy. One day, I gently asked her, "Margaret, what's your personal secret? How do you consistently manage to stay so authentically happy, despite everything life has thrown your way?" She simply laughed softly and replied, "Oh, honey, I don't spend much time thinking about what I've consciously lost. Instead, I focus all of my attention on fully enjoying what I still actively have." Her simple words stayed with me long after that conversation. In that often desolate nursing home environment, I quickly learned to recognize two distinct kinds of people: those who constantly mourned what was irretrievably gone from their lives, and those who purposefully found genuine happiness in the seemingly insignificant little things. The ones who consistently spent their days being openly bitter and constantly dwelling on the perceived injustices of the past were often tragically miserable. But the ones, like Margaret, who consciously found consistent joy in a simple cup of tea, in a warm breeze through the open window, and in a kind, sincere conversation, reliably lived with a profound kind of inner peace that simply couldn't be shaken. They seemingly understood something that most people consciously spend a lifetime diligently chasing. True happiness isn't found in grand achievements, in vast wealth, or in accumulating countless material things. It's consistently found, instead, in appreciating the often overlooked simplest moments, the ones we often rush past without even fully noticing. I used to mistakenly believe that happiness was something you somehow had to actively earn, something you diligently had to chase after continued professional success, the accumulation of more money, and the eventual achievement of some vaguely imagined and constantly moving goal. But after consciously spending time in the stark environment of that nursing home, I fully realized that genuine happiness isn't something you ultimately find later. It's something you intentionally choose now. It's consciously found in the genuine way you actively appreciate the simple taste of your favorite meal, the way you heartily laugh with a dear friend, and the way you gratefully sit outside and readily feel the soothing warmth of the sun caressing your aging skin. It's almost always consciously found in the deliberately quiet moments, in the seemingly insignificant little joys that most of us are simply far too busy to even consciously notice. All too many people tragically waste their entire precious lives searching for fleeting happiness in all the wrong places. They mistakenly think they'll finally be genuinely happy when they get that coveted promotion, when they somehow buy that perfect house, or when they finally reach a mythical retirement age. But I've sadly personally seen far too many people who actually had all of those things and still felt deeply empty. And, conversely, I've also personally seen many others with literally nothing, no close family, no vast wealth, and no great professional achievements, who nonetheless radiated an inner joy because they inherently knew the central secret. True happiness isn't primarily about what you actively have. It's fundamentally about what you consciously choose to actively notice and truly appreciate. If you are finding these lessons in aging to be helpful, please subscribe to our channel, Old Age Wisdom. If you genuinely want to be truly happy, stop waiting for those big, life-altering moments to magically arrive. Enduring happiness is already here, right now, in front of you, consciously woven into the tapestry of those numerous seemingly insignificant little things. Diligently pay conscious attention to them, because one day, you'll inevitably realize that they were, in fact, the truly big things all along. 6. That forgiveness brings peace. There was a memorable woman in the nursing home named Eleanor. She was 89 years old, remarkably sharp-minded, and still possessed a quiet fire in her enduring spirit. But despite her keen wit and insightful wisdom, there was something always lurking in her kind eyes. A profound weight she quietly carried that made her seem not just tired from the inevitable weight of accumulated years, but from something far deeper and more consequential. One quiet evening, as we sat together thoughtfully watching the sunset, she vulnerably told me her deeply personal story. She had a sister, her only sibling, with whom she had once been completely inseparable. But decades ago, they had a bitter falling out over something about money and about pride. Eleanor simply couldn't even consciously remember the exact, painful details anymore, only that they had tragically stopped speaking to each other. Years relentlessly passed, and she always mistakenly assumed they'd eventually make amends one day. But that healing day never came. Her precious sister unexpectedly passed away before they could finally fix what had been so tragically broken. And now, sadly, it was far too late. With tears gently streaming down her weathered face, she quietly whispered, "I mistakenly thought that staying angry somehow made me strong, but all it really did was silently steal my lasting inner peace. Those poignant words stayed with me long after that heart-wrenching conversation. In the stark environment of that often desolate nursing home, I personally met many people who consistently carried old grudges against family members, against former friends, and even against those who had long since passed away. And I consistently saw how that pervasive bitterness prematurely aged them, how it tragically kept them consciously trapped in a past they could sadly never change. The ones who stubbornly clung to resentment consistently suffered the most, not necessarily the people they were even angry at. Their unrelenting anger didn't effectively punish their perceived enemies, it only consistently punished them. I gradually realized something profound. Forgiveness is not primarily about excusing what someone else knowingly did. It's certainly not about falsely stating that the deep pain didn't somehow matter. It's about consciously setting yourself free from the shackles of anger and resentment. Holding on tightly to anger is much like carrying a heavy stone in your very heart, one that inevitably weighs you down more and more with each passing year until you can barely manage to consciously move forward. The precious people in the nursing home who had finally made peace with their often turbulent past, who had consciously chosen to gracefully forgive, were invariably the ones who seemed somehow the lightest, the most genuinely at peace. They had finally let go of their debilitating burdens, and in doing so, they had unexpectedly found precious freedom. Before I wrap up this talk today, I really want to encourage you to like this video and share to your social media. Old Age Wisdom is here for you. If there is currently someone significant in your life whom you sincerely need to forgive, please consciously do it now, not primarily for them, but genuinely for you. Not necessarily because they objectively deserve it, but because you inherently deserve profound and lasting inner peace. Life is far too short to consciously carry corrosive bitterness to the grave. When the inevitable final chapter of your precious life ultimately comes, don't let your very last thought be, "I desperately wish I had willingly let go sooner." Forgiveness isn't a sign of inherent weakness. It's actually the greatest act of lasting strength. And in the very end, it's not primarily about somehow making someone else feel better. It's fundamentally about consciously setting yourself free. So, to quickly summarize all that we've covered in this sensitive discussion, I've shared 6 profound life lessons I learned while unexpectedly spending 2 months in a nursing home. 1. That debilitating loneliness is truly the greatest burden of old age. 2. That good health is far more valuable than any material wealth. 3. That material possessions inevitably lose their perceived meaning as you age. 4. That true independence is a cherished gift that should be actively appreciated and diligently protected. 5. That genuine happiness consciously comes from appreciating the simplest things in life. And 6. That deliberate forgiveness is absolutely essential for achieving lasting inner peace. Each of these valuable lessons offers actionable guidance for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life, not just in your later years, but also starting right now. If this heartfelt video celebrating wisdom gained through life experience resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up by clicking that valuable like button. Generously share it with other amazing people in your life who you genuinely think might benefit from this uplifting message. And please, if you haven't done so already, subscribe right now to Old Age Wisdom for more thoughtful conversations about thriving in our so-called golden years. Now, please thoughtfully let me know in the comments section below which one of these 6 lessons most deeply resonated with you and perhaps even challenged you in some way. Thank you so much for thoughtfully watching this video. Always remember to stay positive and actively seek out those precious glimmers of wisdom in every phase of your unique journey. And I'll definitely look forward to seeing you again soon.